Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Bangers. And yeah, as you can see, I'm out here in the sticks, lovely in the nature. I'm visiting the parental unit this weekend, and I thought, well, why don't I just do the thing outside? I'm doing the thing outside. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Just a couple of things. Of course, I just want to welcome everybody that's here, welcome everybody in chat. Thank you so much for joining week after week and supporting TFV and sticking around in the DIY scene. It's nice to have you guys here. Right, first things first, guys. Some terrible news on in the DIY community. Philip Scott Brown, which is aka Kind Ground, has got some terrible news. He's going through quite a bit right now, and I'm gonna put a link out in chat for his GoFundMe. You can go and read through that. Of course, if you can support, please support. I know that there's going to be a stream from Daytime Frank. Thank you so much, Daytime Frank, for setting up that stream where people can support, and there might be some vape goodies for the people that buy raffle tickets, right? But yeah, guys, please go and click on that link, go and look at the GoFundMe, share it also on all the pages in the DIY community that you know of, so that we can do something good for Philip and his family. Our hearts go out to everybody in the family and Philip as well. The DIY community is behind you. Alright guys, if you've clicked on this, we're going to be talking about custards today. And I want to kick off with Yellow Matter, dripping from a dead dog's eye, from Wadey Loops. There's not much of a description there. The only key word I can really compare what I think this recipe is custard. The description of the recipe as well is I think the lyrics of a song. It might be a song that Wade created himself, or it might be a popular song, so guys, go check it out, let me know. But the recipe goes 2% Flavor West Yellow Cake, 1% Laura Ann's CCI, 2% Inawera Custard, 3% FA Custard Premium, 1.2% DIY Flavor Shack Holy Vanilla, 2% Cap Sweet Cream, and 0.8% TFA Sweetener. Okay, so this is a delicious juice, guys. It vapes like a commercial custard for sure. That's just 100% what my first initial impressions of it is. Extremely smooth, nice vanilla note to it, with that DIY Flavor Shack vanilla in there. It's pretty sweet. I think what helps the sweetness, of course, is the LACCI and the sweetener in there. All those LACCI is sweet, plus the TFA sweetener is also sweet, but I would suggest flavoring this or adding the sweetness to what you like for this recipe. The Flavor West Yellow Cake in here is to just texturize the whole custard. Inawera Custard, a quick steeper at 2%. Interesting combination there. Looks like he went in harder with FA Custard than some of the other recipes and custard bases I've seen going in harder with Inawera Custard. But it's a 3% 2% ratio between the two. And then to top it all off, he's got DFS Holy Vanilla in there. That is a beautiful deep vanilla, quite dark. I love it as well. So yeah, I can also recommend that vanilla. Other vanillas I like is Cap French Vanilla and FA Madagascar. Those are my favorite vanillas. and this one is also one of my favorite vanillas, so I like it. I think what makes this recipe so successful is going in with that 2% cap sweet cream that really thickens up this custards, or these custards, with the yellow cake. What the only little thing about this recipe, which can distract you a little bit, it vapes beautifully. It is delicious. It's like a commercial custard. The only thing that distracts me a little bit in this recipe is that Laura Ann's cream cheese icing. It kind of, when I'm looking for the subtleties of those vanillas, it kind of makes me think I'm vaping like a frosting, right? Like a custard infused or custard flavored frosting, which is delicious. So yeah, that's my take on this recipe. This has to be one of the most delicious custards out there. If you are a little bit sensitive, or to LACCI, I would potentially half it, so that you still get that frosting or that icing note that makes swing this whole recipe to a very delicious tasting custard, but maybe just not that hot. So for me, this is a tip of the banger for sure. Beautiful work. I'm definitely going to take some hints out of here. I've learned quite a bit with this recipe, and Wade, thank you so much for pushing me to mix this up. I think you've done an incredible job here. Let's move to the next recipe.
For my two custard bangers, I anticipated that my co-hosts would probably be exploring recipes that use the newer custards, those being Inawera Custard and FA Custard Premium. So I decided to go back to old school and use the granddaddy of all the custard flavorings, that being Capella Vanilla Custard V1. It's a flavor that I haven't used in a while. I've been dabbling more in the Inawera and FA custards recently, so I wanted to get back to it. And I thought I'd look up a couple of recipes that use this classic flavoring and just see what people are doing with it currently. So the first of those that I mixed was the Custard Base by Nick Evans, ATF handle Nick EVZ, and it's just called the Nevins Custard Base. It's a relatively simple recipe. The base of it is the 4.5% cap vanilla custard, which is then complemented with 1.5% FA Custard Premium, 1.5% Flavora Vanilla Pudding, and 0.75% cap sugar cookie. He describes this as a custard base, so it would probably be wrong to expect this to be a fully fleshed out custard vape. This is supposed to be just a base to which you would add your favorite fruit, an RY4, peanut butter, nuts, butterscotch, whatever takes your fancy to flavor your custard. So with that in mind, I wasn't expecting this to be a fully fledged juice. I was looking at it just as a base, and in that sense it works really well for me. It's smooth, it's rich, it's silky. It does still carry that very trademark cap vanilla custard note, that rich, eggy, somewhat oily note that does still come through. It's not as prominent as it would be if you just took straight cap vanilla custard. The FA Custard Premium and then the vanilla pudding and the cap sugar cookie do tend to just downplay that note a little bit, mute it maybe a little bit, but it is still there. This works well for me as a base. That the vanilla isn't overpowering. It'll play well with virtually any fruit that you throw at it. The texture is great. It's what I'm expecting and wanting from a custard base. The cap sugar cookie adds to that, just gives it that smooth, somewhat sweet texture. The sweetness level is bang on. It's not overly sweet, It will stand a little bit of extra sweetening if you want to put some cap super sweet or FW sweetener, Flora sweetness, whatever your preferred sweetener is, you can add to this. But it's not undersweetened either. If you're not a big fan of sweetener, as I'm not, this will be sweet enough right off the bat. You don't need to add any sweetness to it, and it's also not too sweet. So overall, again, the vanilla isn't too overpowering. It does have a vanilla note, but it's not going to fight with anything that you put on top of it. It's a very pleasantly rounded, moderate base that doesn't draw too much attention to itself. It's going to give you the texture and that vanilla custard note that you want from a custard vape, but it's also blended enough and downplayed enough that whatever top note you put in is going to be the star of the show. So in terms of what it sets out to achieve, I think this recipe does it well. It's probably not something that you're going to want to mix up on its own. You'll want to add a top note in there, but for what it is, a custard base, I think it works really well. So for that, I'll give that a tip of the banger. I think this recipe succeeds in what it sets out to do. Thank you, Nick.
Hi guys, so in this week's episode I decided to do a 3-2-1 custard by Theo, the thefogvlog. He's using the 3-2-1 principle very well. He's going in with 3% Inawera custard, 2% Capella sweet cream, and then 1% golden butter, Capella golden butter. So the main play here is your Inawera custard. At 3%, I personally feel that that is the sweet spot. It's not too much of an eggy type of custard. It's not that thick, bold custard that needs 4, 6, 8 weeks steeping time. It's a really well balanced, light custard with light vanilla notes. The vanilla notes are more sort of brighter. It's not that sharpened vanilla note. It's an all-round amazing custard. It's a premium custard, and I think it's definitely something everyone should have in their flavor stash if you just want to mix up a quick custard. The good thing about Inawera custard is that it doesn't need, like I said, that long steep time. I think after 7 days of steeping, there really isn't much change. So you can shake and vape this, or you can steep it for between 5 to 7 days and still enjoy an amazing custard. The 2% cap sweet cream, I think that with that one, it helps giving that bit of sweetness. It rounds off the custard and gives it a much more bolder, fuller mouthfeel, and it does give that just that extra bit of thickness that a custard does need. I think the surprise concentrate in here was the 1% golden butter. I personally have never used golden butter that high. However, it just is the last, should I say, key to this brilliant custard. it's one at 1%. You can taste the butter. You don't get it lost in the vanilla note and the custard note in that sweetness. So it's there to also give it that pretty much buttery feel. Everybody wants a rich, very vanilla, lovely custard to vape. The same way we do it when we buy it from the shop and we eat it. So all in all, this is a lovely, great recipe. It's well crafted, and Theo did give me license to roast it and to roast this recipe, but I'm finding it very difficult. Look, personally, what I would do is maybe add a bit more sweetener, so like 0.25, 0.35 color super sweet. I'd give it a good 5 to 7 days steep. I tried it on the shake. I let it settle for a couple of hours. Tried it then, and it was amazing. It's custard at its most simplest and premium form. So I'd give this a full banger and a fist bump. Well done, Theo. Great recipe. Thanks, guys.
Hi everybody. For my my bangers segment this week, I did actually mix up two recipes, but the one recipe that one of the recipes that I mixed up, unfortunately, is it's a hazelnut custard. When I tested it, it wasn't quite ready, so it didn't feel right to actually review it when it obviously needed a little bit longer steep time. So what I'm going to do is after a couple of weeks, when it's fully steeped, I'll actually drop a review onto the Mixers ELR recipe with my thoughts on that one for them. So the recipe I'm going to be reviewing this week is called Nanas. That's Nanners, by Radar 696 on ELR. The recipe is as follows. It's Loran banana cream colourless at 6%, Inawera biscuit at 0.5%, the Flavour Apprentice brown sugar at 0.5%, Flavour Add Catalan cream at 1.25%, the Flavour Apprentice sweetener at 1%, and Flavour Apprentice vanilla custard at 6%. Now there wasn't actually any notes on this recipe or a suggested steep time, so I decided to mix her up and give her a try after about a week, and see how it was. Now this is to me, at the moment, this is I'd be quite happy to vape this. All of the elements are there. I'm actually getting a nice creamy foam banana, like a candy banana with a nice creamy background. That's the obviously the banana cream. Anyone that's used the LA banana cream knows it's not a realistic banana. It is more of a candy banana, but it is quite a pleasant vape. And at 6%, I was expecting it to be pretty present, the main note of this mix, and it hasn't disappointed. With that creamy banana, you actually get a nice little touch of biscuit. You know, obviously coming from the Inawera biscuit, it's not overly present, but it is there, and it does add a nice little depth to this mix and a little bit of interest there. Now what the Catalan cream does to this mix, as well as enhancing the cream note of the banana cream, adding a little bit, another layer to that cream note. It actually adds a little bit of its own spices. Not unpleasant at all, not unpleasant spices like pepper or anything like that. It's quite hard to describe the spice notes from this. It's more like a Spanish custard with a little bit of a caramel topping on top. It's supposed to be like a creme brulee. I don't get any of that caramel at all, but I do get a nice cream with those spice notes there. Now the Flavour Out vanilla custard thickens up the mouthfeel of this mix, and blends with the cream from the banana cream as well as the Catalan cream, and adds its own vanilla into this mix. The vanilla note is slightly dark spicy type vanilla. It's not your lighter vanilla. The brown sugar actually lends this a nice dark sweetness to it, almost caramel like, but without the caramel taste. This is overall quite a pleasant vape for such a short steep. If you taste pepper from TFA vanilla bean ice cream, or from any of those vanillas, then this unfortunately won't be a mix for you, because of the TFA vanilla custard. You're sure to get pepper from this mix, so this will be one to avoid for all of those pepper tasters of the TFA vanillas. But for everybody else, especially if you enjoy banana vapes or candy banana vapes, you give this mix up, leave it steep for a week, possibly even 2-3 weeks, and you'll get a nice creamy foam banana with a little bit of depth coming from the biscuit, a little bit of dark sweetness to it. It is a nice pleasant vape. I quite happily give this mixer a fist bump and say well done. Thank you.
So for this week's custard episode, I chose Yellow Matter Custard Dripping from a Dead Dog's Eye by Wadey Loops. Now, as bad as that might sound, this is a very delicious custard, make no mistake. I'm going to start with the percentages here. At 2% the Flavor West Yellow Cake, 1% LA Cream Cheese Icing, 2% Inawera Custard, 3% FA Custard Premium, 1.2% DFS Holy Vanilla, 2% Cap Super Sweet, and 0.8% TPA Sweetener. Now, just a note on the sweetener, instead of TPA sweetener, I went with Cap Super Sweet at 0.5%, and it worked beautifully for me. As you might know, I like my sweetener, and it worked very well with this custard that should be sweet like a normal custard. So this custard is the first custard that I have in my permanent rotation now, and it is a custard that I can say I really enjoy. I have tried a few custard or mixed a few DIY custards before, but there's normally something I don't enjoy about it, and I end up with half of the sample left. So I don't even finish most of them most of the time. With this one, it was a little bit different. The 30ml sample I mixed, I finished within the first 2 days. I mixed it the next day I started vaping it, and I don't think that lasted 2 days. I had to mix another 60ml because the recommended steep time on the recipe is 14 days. So I needed to make some more to test the custard after the steep. And the 60ml made it to 10 days, and I have already mixed another 100ml. And I hope that will make it to the 14-day steep. So I can talk about it up until 10 days steep, and it develops really nicely in terms of the mouthfeel and the thickness of a custard. This is such a bang-on custard in every sense. It's full-on custard on the inhale, then you've got all the texture and the layers. In terms of the complexity of the layers, it's just something you vape, and then the next time you vape it again, or the next few puffs, there's something different I find with the flavor every time. And I think the secret to that was the LA cream cheese icing, which is also the reason why I chose to mix this recipe, because I love LA cream cheese icing. So the LA cream cheese icing in this gives you that very special sweetness, which is, it's obviously that little bit of that tartness from that tart note from the cream cheese icing, or sour note, but I wouldn't really translate it here as a sour or tart note. It's just a very vibrant sweetness. So with this recipe, it works very well. And in terms of the other creams here, like the custard and the custard premium and sweet cream in this recipe, that tartness from the LA cream cheese icing is toned down a lot. So I would go as far as to say is we all know that LA cream cheese icing is something you either love or you hate. And in this recipe, I would actually say give it a try. Even though you don't like it, you might end up enjoying this custard. So the first custard I enjoy, a full fist bump and a full banger from my side. So thank you very much for this recipe. Permanent rotation, and I love this custard. Thank you.
Okay guys, just a quick little scene change for you, hanging with my biggest friend at the back here, which is Inawera Cactus. If you like Inawera Cactus, hit that like button, show your love, and also, you know, remember to subscribe guys if you haven't. The other custard I want to talk about is Yellow Ecstasy from Zag's Machine. Now I have spoken about this recipe before, but how I tested it before was in a direct lung setup, and I did another test on this recipe in an MTL with 9 milligram of freebase nicotine in it. Right, this recipe is 0.5% FA cookie, 1.75% FA custard premium, 1.75% cap French vanilla, 0.2% cap super sweet, 0.25% FA vanilla custard, 2.75% TFA vanilla custard. So you know, just right off the bat you can see that, you know, there's a lot of custards in here, and but you would also see that, you know, a lot of balancing has been done in this recipe. The custards in here are delicious, okay? Yes, we are talking about custards, we're not talking about flavored custards here. However, the FA vanilla custard has got a lemon note in it, but in this recipe it's more like just a little bit of a zing in the recipe, you know, more than a very forward lemon note. Okay, so I still want to classify this as just a straight up custard with a zing in it, right? A small little zing in it. It's not a forward lemon note. Okay, I vaped this in my Berserker, and it is delicious, man. The French vanilla used in here at 1.75% of course makes this feel like a expensive tasting vanilla custard. The super sweet in here is just right at 0.2%. The custard premium and the vanilla custard FA plus the TFA vanilla custard is genius. I like that combination. And the 0.5% from FA cookie is literally just there to texturize the custard a little bit, right? For me, this in a MTL setup was very flavorful, and because of that I want to give this custard recipe a full banger. Zag's Machine, thank you very much for this recipe. It's become one of my favorite custard recipes to mix up, you know, for my MTL setup, and I get a lot of flavor from it. So, you know, because there's not a lot of MTL recipes available, I think this is a real beauty, and especially custard MTLs. That's why I want to give this a full banger, because custards MTL that hides freebase nicotine high, yeah, they're a little bit scarce, you know. So thank you so much, Zag's Machine, full banger for you. And yeah, I enjoyed this one. Let's move on to the next recipe.
For my second custard recipe, I chose Malted Vanilla Custard by Silky. Silky is one of my favorite dessert recipe mixes. His desserts are absolutely fantastic, or her desserts, I'm not sure if it's a he or she. And this one looked very promising to me, so I wanted to give it a go. It's also based on Cap Vanilla Custard, also a recent recipe. This one came out in June of 2018, so quite a recent recipe. And just to give you the recipe first, it's 5% Cap Vanilla Custard, 1% Inawera Shisha Vanilla, 1.25% FA Vienna Cream, 0.5% Inawera Marzipan, 0.75% Flavor West Hazelnut, and 2% TFA Cheesecake Graham Crust. Now these ingredients have all been chosen very specifically, and Silky gives excellent notes on the role that each flavor plays in the overall flavor profile. Obviously the 5% Cap Vanilla Custard provides that vanilla custard base. He then wanted to put in a supporting vanilla and chose the Shisha vanilla for that. That's a relatively bright and light vanilla, so it'll just lift that that somewhat darker, richer vanilla of the Cap Vanilla Custard. Then as a supporting cream, he used the FA Vienna cream, which adds a very smooth, rich, sort of velvety texture to the custard base. Then he wanted to add a malted feel to the custard, and that's where the TFA Cheesecake Graham Crust, the Flavor West Hazelnut, and the Inawera Marzipan come in. Now, all three of those have a sort of malted note in them, that sort of earthy, nutty, browned, slightly darker note that just pushes that that malted aspect of flavors. So what we're left with here, I wouldn't call this a base. He does describe it as a base in the notes, but this to me is complex enough, it has enough flavors in it, it has enough subtlety in it to stand as a standalone custard vape. This is not a mix that I would be adding a fruit to, or chocolate or peanut butter or anything like that. I think it's complex enough on its own that those three malted ingredients add a great deal of subtlety and complexity to the mix, and this works really, really well for me. I was expecting that trademark oily, eggy Cap Vanilla Custard character to come through, because that is the only custard flavor in the actual recipe. But to my surprise, that underlying character is masked very well by the other flavors. I mean, I'm tasting a custard, but it's more in line with a lighter, like the Inawera or the Custard Premium. It's lost that sort of very heavy, eggy and oily Cap Vanilla Custard character, which is a plus for me, because that the cap can get a little bit too much at times. So I was pleased to note that character doesn't come through that strongly in this mix. I'm getting that the malted note coming through. It just bends the custard in a slightly different direction, and it also forms quite an interesting balance issue, because in terms of the vanilla, the Inawera Shisha Vanilla lifts the Capella Vanilla. It makes it a little bit lighter and brighter, but then that malted note from the Cheesecake Graham Crust, the FW Hazelnut, and the Inawera Marzipan, those all move it slightly towards, it's not a dark flavor, but it's just a sort of beigey, browny, nutty, earthy sort of character that is added to the custard. So you've got light on the one hand, a little bit darker on the other hand, and overall it gives you a very subtle, nuanced vape. This isn't just a big, heavy custard that smashes you in the face. It's a plain custard flavor, no other flavor to it other than those malted accents, but it's complex and it stands on its own, and it's interesting. It vapes really well. I can vape it for extended periods without tiring of it. As I say, it doesn't give that heavy Cap Vanilla Custard note, which I get tired of quite quickly. This is a somewhat lighter and it's an easier mix to vape. So if you're looking for a custard that's complex but that doesn't deviate from just a plain custard base, albeit an accented custard base, this is a really good recipe to go for. In my view, you'll find it interesting. It's definably and familiar custard, but it's somewhat different as well. Just those little flavor accents, the marzipan, the hazelnut. Keep it interesting, move it out of the ordinary, and they give you an original and a very pleasant tasting custard vape. I'll give this a tip of the banger. I was very close to giving this a full banger. It really is very good, but a recipe has to be so exceptional to get a full banger from me. This is a very good tip of the banger. So highly recommended from me. And thank you, Silky, for another absolutely great dessert recipe. Thank you.
Okay guys, we've come to the end of our show, and I just wanted to thank everybody that's been hanging out in chat here. Guys, please go and support Kind Ground and his GoFundMe. I'll put the link out in chat once more. Then just a couple of shout outs before we go. Fresh03, of course, for letting us run the show after his. I think he's moving right now, and you know, good luck with that move, Fresh. Hope to see you back on YouTube soon. Then I want to shout out DIY Down Under. Go and check out their YouTube channel and also their Facebook group. Same thing for Daytime Frank. Go and check out his YouTube channel, and his Facebook group is Mixing in the Kitchen. Guys, also go and check out our South African Facebook group, which is called Mixologist South Africa. I'll put that link in chat now. If you're not a member yet over there, please go and join. It'll be cool to have you there. A few other channels also developed, really awesome channel, the Mix and Vixens. Go and check out that channel as well. And yeah guys, that pretty much brings us to the end of the show. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please remember to leave a like, also share this video with all your friends, especially the people that are into custards, guys. And yeah, thanks for joining us. Cheers, man.